Let's find out together. So picture this. It is exactly 11 p.m., the night is incredibly deep, and our protagonist, a young man named Arjun, is settling into a window seat on a train just as it begins to pick up speed from this small, completely deserted station. He's entirely alone in his section. The carriage itself? Mostly empty. You've got a few people fast asleep, others just completely absorbed in their phones. It's that exact universally recognizable moment of late-night travel, right? Where time just kind of feels suspended, and you really just want the journey to end so you can finally be home. It's literally the absolute perfect isolated setup for a psychological thriller. It strips away all your social safety nets and leaves the protagonist entirely on his own. Arjun is staring out the window, but there is absolutely nothing to see outside. It's just a lonely train moving into a pitch-black, colorless void. The only break in this heavy, suffocating blackness is the occasional, fleeting flash of a distant light speeding by. And then, boom, the train is swallowed up by the dark, heavy silence once again. Psychologically speaking, this setting is an absolute masterclass in isolation. When our sensory input is drastically reduced like this, our brains naturally start trying to fill in the gaps, which breeds this creeping, undeniable paranoia. It leaves Arjun completely vulnerable to whatever happens next inside that carriage. Which brings us to our first major turning point. Section 1, the mysterious passenger. The train makes this really brief 1-minute halt at a tiny station, and a young woman boards, taking the seat directly opposite Arjun. She is strikingly beautiful, but she possesses this strange, unnerving calmness about her. This brilliantly illustrates the anatomy of a haunting. We literally always start with the appearance stepping through a brief, almost impossible window or portal. Soon after comes the warning, and that is inevitably followed by the vanishing. Right now in the story, we're sitting right between steps 1 and 2. Arjun smiles, she smiles back, and they strike up a conversation. At first, it's just normal small talk, but then the narrative subtly and terrifyingly shifts gears. The conversation turns to the desolate nature of their journey, and she drops this incredibly chilling line. She says, "Darkness is my old friend, and the night never leaves me alone." And she says it with zero fear. In fact, she claims she travels this exact train every single day. I mean, think about your own long, late-night commutes for a second. They are completely exhausting, right? But she is entirely devoid of fear and shows absolutely no signs of fatigue. Breaking expected social norms in an isolated space like a train carriage immediately triggers our threat response. It's this complete lack of normal human vulnerability that begins to make Arjun deeply, deeply uneasy. Now, what's really interesting to compare here is the stark contrast between the two. On one side, we have Arjun. He's experiencing normal travel fatigue, he's eager to go home, firmly grounded in reality. And on the other side, we have the mysterious girl. She's displaying unnatural energy, this weird affection for the pitch-black night, and making genuinely bizarre claims. When Arjun asks where she's getting off, she names a place where this train simply does not stop. Arjun, trying to be logical, points this out. Her response? She gives him a smile that just feels slightly off and calmly states that yes, she knows the train doesn't stop there, but her destination is on this route. She gets off there every single day, and this train is her second home. She's speaking in absolute riddles, bending the rules of reality right in front of him. Before Arjun can even fully process her cryptic words, things escalate. Section 2, the bridge and the scream. Arjun laughs off her weird comments and looks back out the window into the pitch black. Suddenly, the train moves onto a bridge. We hear an altered echo from the tracks, followed by absolute silence. It becomes this hollow echoing resonance. You know the sound? That distinct noise of empty space beneath you? Sudden auditory shifts exactly like this instinctively put human beings on high alert. I want you to really imagine being in that dimly lit, quiet carriage, the hollow echo vibrating beneath you, and then a sudden, terrifyingly deep and agonizingly painful scream pierces the quiet. It's a sound so loud and so filled with sheer agony that it literally physically freezes Arjun in pure terror. So what on earth was that? Well, in the context of the legend, it is a localized supernatural phenomenon. It's a traumatic imprint left behind on the environment that is absolutely never forgotten by those who experience it. With his heart pounding completely out of his chest, Arjun slowly forces himself to look across the carriage at the girl. And nothing. She is gone. The seat is completely empty, and it's not just that she got up and moved, it's as if she had never been there in the first place. In the blink of an eye, or the duration of a single scream, she has completely vanished into thin air.
Okay, let's slow things down just a bit. We've had the scare, but now we need the context. Section 3, a chilling revelation.
Right at that terrifying moment of her disappearance, a tea vendor happens to walk through the compartment. Arjun, with his hands literally trembling, desperately asks if he heard the scream. The vendor just gives him this weary look of recognition. You know, it's a look that says he has been asked this exact question many, many times before. He calmly explains the tragic timeline of the local lore. Exactly 5 years ago tonight, a girl jumped from a moving train right off this very bridge. And ever since, as the train crosses, some passengers hear the echoing scream of a woman. The vendor just moves on, but Arjun is left clutching something. When he looked at her empty seat, he found a tiny, crumpled piece of paper. Written on it is a single date. And yeah, you guessed it. It is the exact date of the suicide, from 5 years ago tonight.
So the absolutely crucial point here is the physical evidence that anchors this supernatural experience to reality. Consider the clues she left behind. We have the total disappearance of the passenger, right? We have the crumpled paper. We have the date that perfectly matches the tragedy from 5 years ago. And, most terrifyingly, even though the train window is completely closed, the empty seat where she sat radiates an unnatural freezing cold spot. This brilliantly illustrates the anatomy of a perfect ghost story. It's not just a spooky noise in the dark. It's the physical, undeniable remnant of the impossible. It completely shatters that comforting illusion of, oh, it was just a dream, making the legend feel horrifyingly real.
But escaping the train definitely doesn't mean escaping the story. Which leads us to Section 4, the unanswered questions. Arjun's heart is beating so fiercely he can probably hear it in his own chest. He is terrified, resolving to get off at the very next station. But that lingering paranoia sets in. Why did she talk to Arjun tonight? According to the lore, this spirit has wandered this route night after night, jumping from the bridge in an endless tragic loop for 5 years. But she never talks to anyone. She just screams. So why, on this specific night, did she decide to break her silence and engage with Arjun? The terror of being randomly selected by the supernatural completely disrupts our fundamental belief in a predictable, safe world. And that leads us to our final lingering thought. Was the date on the paper a warning to Arjun, or was it a desperate plea to be remembered? This question right here is the core of why urban legends endure in our collective consciousness. Perhaps ghosts aren't just remnants of trauma meant to scare us. Maybe they linger, replaying their final moments simply so they aren't forgotten by the living world. The train kept moving, the bridge was left behind, but that unnatural chill on the empty seat remained. And now you carry a piece of that haunting story with you too. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the shadows, and I'll see you next time.